Yo, comic fam, I'm your host, Comic Tom. Thank you so much for joining me today. Oh, who do we got on the mic?
What's up? It's your boy, Gem Mint.
Dude, how you feeling, man? How you doing?
Man, I'm feeling good. I mean, I'm in quarantine, I'm in lockdown, but we're cranking out content. I'm reading comics. We're making it happen.
Yeah, the fam's doing good over there?
Yeah, everyone's chilling.
Dude, we're all healthy over here. We're making content. We're doing it, remotely. I appreciate the community being here today. Hit that subscribe button. We make a lot of comic book themed content. Go down to the description. Make sure you're following Gem Mint over at Gem Mint Collectibles. He puts out a ton of great stuff. And man, you've been putting out some fire over these last weeks. You feeling pretty cooped up?
A little bit, man, but I'm just trying to keep busy, keep my mind off it.
Well, you know what? We've been making some content over this last month. I want to announce some giveaway winners right out the gate from our recent video that we did over on your channel, the big mistakes statue collectors make.
Yeah, we've been doing videos on each other's channel. We promoted this store number one on each of our channels. We flipped a coin to decide which set of comments we're going to use the randomizer for. And it was my video that we randomized. And the winner for this store number one South America variant is Josh Yoa. Congratulations, brother. Make sure to hit Comic Tom with a message with your shipping information so we can get this book out to you.
Absolutely. Information in the description on how to contact us. I also wasn't going to let my homies down here at the Comic Tom YouTube channel. So we're going to do a second giveaway just to hook up the fam. Shane Cooley, thank you also for commenting, liking, and subscribing to our channels. We're going to send you a Spider-Woman #1 ComicTom101 exclusive. And oh my gosh, this is a podcast, so we have to announce our podcast giveaway from last week's podcast. Shout out to Modoc Mike. You're going to be getting some Alex Ross goodness, the Marvelocity, courtesy of the legend himself.
Man, that's a dope book. Alex Ross, one of the greats, one of the greatest painters, comic artists in the business.
Super excited to send this out. And let's jump into this show, Jem, because we have some fun stuff we're going to discuss. I want to get into some, a little bit of what we're doing throughout this time. We're at home, we're doing comic stuff, but I want to know specifics, like any recommendations. I saw a video you made this last week about what you're doing throughout the isolation that we're all experiencing. And I saw a video where you're like dusting statues. Are you okay, man? Are you really dusting your statues right now?
You got to dust your statues. Yeah, we put out a video, 5 things collectors can do during quarantine. And it's kind of like things that we should always be doing. But, with life, it gets in the way and you put these things to the back burner. But yeah, dusting your statues or bagging and boarding your comics or organizing your collection, categorizing it, reading comics. I mean, I know most of us have a huge backlog of either single issues or you end up buying 10 omnibus and you've only read one. So that kind of a thing.
Dude, back when I was younger and I used to collect Pokemon cards, I used to literally take the afternoon, put all my cards out, take them all out of the binder just to reorganize them for absolutely no reason. Dude, I'm almost 30 and I'm literally doing that with my comics in my living room right now.
Yeah, for sure. We're collectors, man, and we tend to buy more than we organize or read or whatever, so it's only natural. This is a time where we could catch up.
Well, you know what? I also have been looking at your shelf here. You have so much great reading material. I've been trying to get caught up on some books, and I can't stop looking at those lights. So I figured now's the best time to do it.
What happened?
All right. Can you tell that I straight up copied you?
Tom, the key to a successful channel is LED light strips. I mean, that's all you got to have.
For the audio members, if you don't have the visual, I have LEDs that I've loosely strung up just for this video on my set. Hopefully it'll look a bit better in coming weeks, but Jem, your set is looking great. What have you been reading throughout this time? Any recommendations to the comic book community?
So, man, I've been getting into manga lately. Berserk has got me full blown into manga. Started reading stuff like Vinland Saga, and right now I'm finishing up Death Note. I love it. It's so different. It doesn't even feel like a manga. You think Dragon Ball, like high flying action and stuff like that, but Death Note is such a intellectual thriller type of book. So I've been reading that. But as far as recommendations, I think you guys need to take this time to catch up on Gideon Falls. That is a Jeff Lemire book. It's amazing. There's trade paperbacks out there. I'm sure you could get them on Amazon or get them online somewhere. But Gideon Falls is something that I recommend everybody gets caught up on.
That's fun. You picked kind of honestly, both of those recommendations. Death Note is kind of a post-apocalyptic. I mean, it's mass murder and crazy events happening, like science fiction, fantasy. Love Death Note. Really, really strongly recommended. But Also, Gideon Falls, another one kind of post-apocalyptic. I tend to do this when I'm feeling kind of stressed out. If I'm at home or trying to keep occupied, I tend to navigate towards more horror stuff. And being that I'm locked inside, I'm doing my social distancing, and I'm also kind of worried, a little scared. This is weird what we're experiencing right now. I'm navigating towards like the most horrific stuff, like 28 Days Later movies. And my reading is reflecting that as well. So a couple of recommendations I have is, however you like to call it, mimetic is actually a word, but I've heard some people call it meme tick, which is a 3-issue series that I strongly recommend. Post-apocalyptic, super dark, very mature. And another is Trees. There's 3 volumes of it. They're in their 3rd, but you can get the first 2 trades right now, and both are very fun.
And I only read the 3rd volume, and I got to tell you, I think you could just pick that up and start right from there too. It's not like you need to know everything that happened in the prior 2 volumes.
Correct. They're kind of their own individual story as in Trees. Each volume is kind of its own narrative about a world where aliens come, but they don't communicate with us. They just live amongst us, and it's about the societies that form around these tree-like structures. Meme tick was actually something that was optioned a couple months back by Seth Rogen's company. And I went ahead and read it because issue number 1, all the issues, they have a very kind of standard cover A, but issue number 1 had a variant. It was a 1 in 25, and it has a sloth on it. And it's one of the most inviting covers you can look at. It's a cute sloth. You wouldn't think anything of it. But after getting to issue 3 in this run, you realize that sloth is one of the most horrific things that you'll ever look at. And now I can't even look at a sloth the same. And to think that Seth Rogen has taken on this comic book is kind of crazy because it's very out there. It has to do not just with a sloth, but the sloth is a symbol of a weapon. The sloth is a meme that's utilized as a weapon to drive the world crazy, and aliens get involved. And yeah, you got to read this book.
Sounds crazy.
The reason why I wanted to chat about some reading tips is because we had some updates with Diamond over this last 2 weeks with what's been going on. And I was excited to chat with you today on the mic because I think you were actually the first YouTuber to talk about it. Am I correct?
Yeah, it might be because what happened was I'm on Instagram heavy, and I started seeing everybody share this information about Diamond. I think Bleeding Cool might have been the news source to break it, and then Newsarama. But I did a quick YouTube search, and I didn't see any YouTubers talking about it. So I've been doing this GMC news thing. It's kind of funny. I put on a blazer. I kind of got the news music in the background to report on Diamond deciding to not ship new comic books for the foreseeable future. And this week is actually the first week, I think, when they're no longer shipping.
That's right. I wanted to go on the mic after seeing what happened, and then I saw, oh, you did it. I'll share your video. You got it handled. You communicate all the information that the community needed to know. And then the next day there was a little bit of information. I was getting ready to go to the mic the day after that, and then all of a sudden I saw what was actually taking place. Every single day there's something new, is there not?
Mm-hmm.
And now we have pretty much a good understanding of what's going to play out.
Yeah, there was a lot of speculation on whether or not publishers were going to release comics digitally, and a lot of publishers, one at a time, were saying no. I think Marvel or DC was the last holdout, and now we have the final list that they're not going to continue publishing these books digitally. They're going to wait for print to come back in.
Yeah, it looked like DC was considering putting their titles to digital for maybe 48 hours. And I think the reception they got was so poor that they decided to pull back and do what Marvel has announced today. It's Tuesday when we're recording this, that no, they're just putting a halt on all the titles and with no plan just yet because they have to take it day to day.
But let me drop my idea, and this is going to take you by surprise because we haven't talked about this at all. But my whole thing was when you buy a comic, you get a free digital code in the back, at least with Marvel, right? So why couldn't they have it where if you buy the digital copy, you could redeem a code for the physical copy when they come back in print?
Oh, that's interesting. I haven't heard that thought. I mean, there's a lot of different challenges when it's, as these publishers are trying to figure out just a distribution process. I'm sure trying to figure out how they get the comics in hand is the struggle when Diamond is pretty much the monopoly. I mean, they're the ones who are in charge of like 100+ publishers' comic books.
And actually, that's what DC was saying. There was a little rumor going around that they would consider other distribution options besides Diamond, and I guess they decided not to go through with it.
Yeah, that was another weird one. Like, again, 24 hours, this information was floated. It hit Bleeding Cool, hit a bunch of different sites. And then the very next day, now something new. So we're going to keep you updated as much as we can, Comic Fam. But Jem is really on it with the quick turnarounds on more of the breaking news videos. So I'm sure you'll probably make something if something ends up happening that's needing to alert the community.
Yeah, if I get enough content for a decent video, I'll put something together pretty fast.
Hey, we were also chatting about a bunch of reading that we've been doing, and I want to throw this out there. I brought something from the PC today that I want to give away. I have a copy of Immortal Hulk, the volume #1. And this is something that everyone needs to read. But if you haven't, comment down below, like and subscribe to both of our channels, and I'll enter you to win this copy. And we'll announce this on next week's podcast and give you some reading material from my personal collection. This is what I read.
And I think during these times when everybody's quarantined, stuck in the house, it's better to get a trade paperback right now than a variant. Something you could actually read and jump into. You don't need any prior reading to get into this run. And that's probably the strongest arc, in my opinion, for Immortal Hulk right now.
I figured some reading material would be useful during these times. And you know what, man? I do have a variant that's on deck to do a giveaway for. So we'll get to that one too. But I want to chat about some comic book buy, selling, and trading tips. All right, because I've been at home, man. I've been buying comics. I've been surfing Instagram more than I ever have. And I realize there's these things that I do, things I participate in that I realized a lot of members of the community either don't know about, they're not as affluent in, they don't maybe realize that there are opportunities out there during these times to interact, to be part of the community, but also engage in aspects that can allow you to still buy, sell, and trade. And I thought, hey, let's get you on the mic, man. Let's chat about it.
Yeah, this is definitely something I see a lot of people asking in the comments and during live streams. People want to know, how do I get started selling comics online? And I think what better time than now for collectors or anybody to start that online presence? It's really easy. So we're going to talk about some things that we're familiar with. And I think what we'll do is we'll start as a novice. Let's say you don't have any social media presence. One of the biggest and most inviting platforms for me was Instagram. You can easily set up an Instagram account, and all you need to do is start taking decent pictures, posting them with good lighting, and list how much you want for the comics, your estimated condition, and use the hashtags. You want to do like #, which is what the kids are calling hashtag now, comics for sale, or a hashtag IG comic family. And you're going to start getting some interaction.
That's right. I'll do the Comic Fam a favor and put a bunch of examples in the description below that you can copy and paste. I encourage you to maybe text it to yourself so you're not having to think on the go as you're posting, what hashtags do I use? And what that'll do is it'll allow your posts to get put into the Explore page on Instagram. What's the Explore page?
So on Instagram, your news feed is only going to show pictures of people that you're following. If you click onto the Explore section, it's going to kind of show everything that's geared to what you already look at. So if you start posting pictures of comics for sale, people who typically look at those types of posts are going to see yours. So my big advice is to also be interactive. If somebody comments, reply to their comment, check their page out, like some of their pictures, and get involved in the community, which is really how I got started on comic book online in general.
A lot of members get discouraged out the gate. You know, they're waiting for stuff to happen. They post and they wait. They post and they wait and they don't see anything happen. The problem is what you just described, people aren't doing. Engaging in the community. Posting is the first part, and it's also the least important part. You need to interact in the community. You need to comment. For every one post you do, there needs to be at least 10 to 20 minutes of activity done on Instagram so you can generate connections, build friendships, build your network. And that way, when people come to buy off your page, there's some type of trust that's built. There's a community that's been forming, and people will they'll be able to rest assured that they're not dealing with someone who's going to screw them out on a deal.
That's so true, man. If you look, I'm a perfect example. I think Tom's story is very similar. I was somebody who had zero social media presence. I made an Instagram page. I started sharing my pictures by commenting on other people's stuff, following back. You could easily do giveaways on Instagram to start getting some more attention to your page. And then look, like 5 years later, we have this big community. So I know it sounds a little overwhelming. And I don't want you to feel that way. I just want you to set up that account, post some pictures of some books that you have for sale, and do those things that we mentioned, and you're definitely going to get some momentum.
All right, let's take a look at another social platform that I think is largely underutilized / people may not know that it's even available. And I'm talking about Facebook buy, sell, and trading groups. Some of these groups are just one of 3 of these things. You can only trade. Some of these groups are just for selling. Some of these groups are just for buying. Some are for all 3. Whatever tickles your fancy. That's what I like about Facebook is there's groups and communities for every single person. And I recommend everybody who's in the comic book game, in the community, who's collecting comic books, who's buying, who's selling, and who's trading, to be part of at least one, if not more than one.
And people always say, oh, I don't have a Facebook. I don't do Facebook. Listen, me either. I only have a Facebook to be a part of these groups because I'm in a lot of different types of groups: statue collectors, omnibus collectors, CGC, key comic collectors. I don't participate on my personal Facebook page. I just have one set up so I can be a part of these groups.
Absolutely. You know, there's aspects to Facebook that's unique in itself. I can only get most of my foreign comic books from community groups like that. They don't hit eBay. They don't hit Amazon, you know? And you have to be able to network with people all over the world, and Facebook is where these communities are forming. So I want to encourage members to not just be part of Facebook groups, but to be active as well. And if you're looking for ways to be able to get your feet wet, to just out the gate start moving comics, and you want to get rolling, you don't want to do eBay, or Instagram's not your jam, you want something more immediate, maybe more personal, direct communication with people right away. Well, the first thing you do is you've got to find one of these groups, and you just find them by going into the search bar on your Facebook page and type in comic books, buy, sell, and trade. And you got to shop. You got to look at the groups and decide which one you want to be part of. And I encourage people to choose ones that are like 5,000 members or more for the purposes that we're describing. But, you know, my foreign group that I'm part of is under 2,000, and there's a lot of different ones.
Yeah, but you want to make sure there's a good amount of members there. Maybe like you said, a couple thousand, a few hundred or something like that. And don't get discouraged, man. Facebook can be a toxic place. I almost didn't continue my online comic book presence because when I first started, I joined a Facebook group and I didn't have a good experience. Thankfully, I did jump over to Instagram and I met a great community of people. But it could just be the luck of the draw. If you don't like the group, just leave, and there's a ton of other ones out there.
Absolutely. Like, you want to be a proud member of these groups. And if you get a vibe that it's just, you know, too aggressive, too negative, I mean, or not aggressive enough. I mean, heck, maybe you want to complain. There's groups for you as well. But something that you can do to kind of just start out the gate, if you got some comics you want to start listing, you can, you know, read the rules first, because every one of these groups are going to have their own guidelines of what you can and can't do. But it's very common to see Facebook auctions take place on the daily. And if you're not someone who wants to get in front of the camera, this is something I would recommend. What you can do is you can take a picture of your collection of the day that you're going to post. And then under that post, start listing your books. Take a picture of the comic and do the same thing that Jem just said. How much you want for the comic book, or what is it starting at? $1. Depends on what you want to do. And put the grade and do a 24-hour auction. It will take members on average an hour, maybe an hour and a half, to take up to 100 to 150 pictures of comic books to put on a Facebook form for people to shop. You can do that every day right now.
Yeah, and these are really trying times for people who sell comics for a living, for comic shops. And I just want to give a shout out to a shop that I see online that's doing it right. Torpedo Comics on Instagram is killing it right now. They're doing live auctions, and this might be something that you want to do once you build more of a following on Instagram. But they're going live. They have a system in place where people are bidding live on books, and they're moving books. And the time where they're not getting any new comics in, they're really focusing on moving the inventory that they currently have, and they're having fun doing it.
Jem, don't you think that all of these things are aspects of this community that members and business members should be doing anyways?
This is definitely an opportunity where you can learn how to build your social media presence. I think that anybody who's buying and selling comics would definitely benefit from having an online presence.
Something impressive that I've seen over this last year is live Facebook auctions. So I just discussed how you can do a live auction without being on camera. Well, there are members who are doing it on camera from their home with their families for hours. like
Yo, and I'll
hours
tell
and
you something.
hours.
Those Facebook live auctions are super popular. I notice people sharing them in my group from people that I don't even know, and they have a ton of people watching them live, but people are just into them. They share it, they participate, and it's really fun.
Yeah, you just got to do it often. And everyone starts out with a little bit of people and they grow the audience. But right now, everyone's home. So this is a great time to implement some of these things and
For sure.
possibly move some comics, trade some comics, make use of your time.
All right, guys, before we get to the next section, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below, hit the notification bell, hit the like button. We're going to announce the next giveaway. We're going to give away this Black Panther statue.
Dude, we're giving away a Black Panther statue?
No, I'm just kidding.
You got me excited for a second. I'm like, I got a comic here. Wait a minute. All right, but you're giving it away eventually, though, right?
Yeah, I had it here on the table. I just thought I'd mess with you. No, actually, I am giving this statue away. If you go to my channel and check out the review for this, you can see the details on how to enter. But what's the giveaway we got for this video, Tom?
Oh, dude, today we're going to be giving away this 1 in 100 Grossin variant. This is Marvel Comics 1001. Thanos, it's gorgeous. And if you comment, like, and be a subscriber of the channel, it'll enter you to win this. We'll announce this next week on the next podcast. Next part of the show, we got to get into something really fun here. I thought this would be a great opportunity to go over some collecting tips, but specifically some tips for those who are looking to take their collecting and their hunt to the next level. I want to get into comic books that to the average viewer, they may look like a standard cover. They may look like a standard regular comic, but because there's something different about it, it makes them valuable. It makes them collectible. Let's get into some specific types of variants.
And I like what you said to me off camera about this. This is kind of like after you got your runs down, after you got your keys down, after you memorized all those type of books. Now you start to look for those unicorns. These are kind of like the variants before there were really variants. And we're going to talk about these different type of books that you can hunt for in the wild, or maybe even in your own long box.
That's right. Make sure to like, subscribe, and comment on our video. And we're going to jump into some of these topics here. I want to just out the gate talk about valuable errors. There's a lot of ones that fall into this category, but out the gate, we should just have it be the first one we discuss.
All right, so with these error comics, you can have recalled comics. Like one that comes to mind is a Star Wars Hot Topic variant. This was around the time of Avengers Age of Ultron, and it had an ad for these Funko Pops in the back. And it showed this gray Hulk Funko Pop that I guess Marvel wasn't supposed to show it yet, or Hot Topic wasn't supposed to show it yet, so they got recalled. Whoever got a copy of that variant started flipping those on eBay for big bucks. But what we're going to go into is an older book, a book from 1996 that was recalled.
Let's go deep cut with this gem because I want to try to surprise some members of the community. Recalled comic books happens often. Like every year there's stuff that goes on. So members are going to know off the cuff some to look for when they're on the hunt. But I wanted to find one that people just don't know about. So yeah, 1996, there was a Mission Impossible comic book that came out, issue number 1, and it was recalled. And we know it was recalled because there were 2 panels that were changed and distributed, and both comics exist.
But why did they redo the panels?
That's the thing. From there on out, it's legendary. We know that the comic was recalled because there's 2 that exist. On page 3, both panels are different. One panel shows Ethan Hunt in frame, and the other, he is gone. And then the next panel that was changed, you have an Ethan Hunt's face that was redrawn, kind of Maurice Severin status in this Hulk Annual #1 Steranko cover that was done. And what is said to have happened is that Tom Cruise received a copy of this issue before it hit the stands, and he had some negative things to say about this comic.
That sounds like something Tom Cruise would do, though. He didn't like how it looked or whatever and said, no, you got to pull this.
Specifically, he said that Ethan Hunt looked too feminine. So, I want to know from the community, we'll put both pictures up here. Do you think that this Ethan Hunt looks so feminine enough that the artist would need to go back, get it back to the editor, get it photoshopped and redone?
Hit us in the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. The next type of book we're going to talk about are the newsstand variants.
Correct. Newsstand comic books were indicated by having a UPC box traditionally in the bottom left of the comic. And the comics that were sold on newsstands were printed less, meaning that these comics were more scarce.
And because they were in the wild, literally outside on newsstands, they're a lot more scarce and high grade. So you're going to know some books that get a premium for a 9.8 newsstand just because of how scarce they are in that grade.
I wanted to pick some comic books to chat about that were newsstand variants that were going to surprise members of the community because they know the cover, but they're going to be surprised to see how much their newsstand counterpart goes for. And I think we should start with the Gabriel Delgado Morbius the Living Vampire issue #1 newsstand variant.
First of all, Gabriel Delgado is a fan favorite variant cover artist to begin with, but when you can get a #1 and a newsstand variant that's much more scarce, you're going to talk big bucks.
Dude, this raw comic, like standard cover A, it's cool, but it's like an $8 book, $10 book in 9.6 to 9.8. It was printed heavily and it's a really cool run. But the newsstand variant of this hits highs of $90 to $100.
This is raw.
That's correct. Raw, and all you have to do is look out for that UPC in the bottom part of the comic.
The next book we're going to talk about is a super common book. Everybody had a couple of these in their boxes growing up. This is the red foil cover Venom Lethal Protector #1. But I bet you 9 times out of 10, it's a direct market with Spidey in the box. I think he's saying, oh no, or something like that. The newsstand variant is much more rare and it goes for more money.
I've literally stood in comic shops with dealers who have like 15, 20 copies thinking that they're all the same. And then I'll go through and go, nope, pull this one out. No. Pull this one out. No. Because they go for double. Lethal Protector, when it's not Venom, like when the movies aren't popping and they're like, you can go watch them right now. The lull is about $15 for this book, $20 for a high grade. But a newsstand variant of this same issue goes for double that, $50.
The next one I want to talk about, I think, is really cool because this is another one that is a super common book. It's Spawn #1. I think they printed over 1 million copies of this. What's interesting is that the direct market did not have a box whatsoever. You only have a box on the newsstand version, which is much more rare. And when you have 1 million print run, you need something to offset that to give it some kind of collectability. So the newsstand for Spawn #1 is one of those books.
Dude, it's like a $20 raw book. And even that seems like a little high to quote, but it is a $20 book right now with like movie spec. I mean, even McFarlane would probably laugh at you for paying $20 for his book. But a newsstand variant, I looked up, dude, this month, a couple days ago, $70, for a VF near mint copy sold.
Yeah, that's a big difference. And it sucks that this book is not valuable because it's the first appearance of Spawn. It's Spawn #1 and he's on the cover. It has everything going for it except that print run, man. So that's why the Spawn collectors especially are going to want something that's a little bit more value. And this newsstand is a good one.
All right, let's take a look at some DC newsstands that you just got to know. These ones are quite a bit bigger, but they're also very just random comics. Like they're not major keys. They're not ones you're going to go, oh yeah, that's a first appearance of Taskmaster. Like that's going to be worth more if I find a variant of it. No. Right. This is Superman 50, the second print. And the way that you're going to know, there's 2 indicators that this is the second print you're dealing with. Because there's more than this second print that exists. There's other versions, but you're looking for the scarce second print with a UPC in the lower left and the words historic engagement issue at the top. Now at a 9.8, this book hits $300 all day long. Right now, if you go to eBay, VF copies of this book could be found for starting at $100, and there are very few of them listed.
That's a cool one. You know what's funny about that era of DC books? A lot of times the second, third, fourth, fifth printings are the more rare, more expensive books. And this is just one of those newsstand kind of variants that are one of those.
Absolutely. It's similar to this next one on the list, Batman 457.
That's the Scarecrow cover, right?
Yeah, Scarecrow's on there. Got Batman hanging upside down. This is the first Jason Todd as Robin. It's a minor key, but I think for like newsstand variants go, this is the one that most collectors in the community think of for that price variation. This is a $10 book in high grade, $15. Some people may pay $20 to guarantee the 9.8 slot, but with the newsstand edition, you're going to know if this is it because it says the words New Robin at the top of the comic, in addition to the UPC in the bottom right of the cover. This book goes for over $1,000. The high grade estimated value is $1.8 thousand on Key Collector Comics. And if you go online right now, you can see VF starting at $1,000 minimum.
Dang, that's crazy.
So keep an eye out for this book. I can attest that I have actually seen copies of this book go missed on dealers' tables in their dollar bin issues. And I've also seen this book sold on Amazon for under $10 because the listers didn't know. They just listed the book. It looks like a standard copy. And when you go onto Overstreet or you go on Key Collector, if you don't check the variant button, or if you don't look at the different types of books that exist for these copies, they could be missed, and they generally are.
All right, the next set of variants we're going to talk about are the DCU logo variants.
I think this is one of my favorite types of variants because this was something that was really uncovered by the masses in this community in this last year and a half. And what are we talking about? We're talking about these packs of comics that were largely sold to like toy stores. Specifically, Toys R Us is like notorious for being heavy suppliers of these. And these were packages of comic books that were distributed there, containing an assortment of books, but they were printed for these packs. And the way you can tell them apart is in the bottom left, where the UPC would be, it actually says DC Universe, making these a different reprint. It's a different version of the standard cover A. But what makes this intriguing is that because these went back to print and because they were so low print, these are looked at as some of the rarest DC comics that exist.
That's awesome. These are the original variants. This is something that was not made on purpose to be collectible. It just happened to be a different version of a book that was much more scarce.
So I'm going to point out a couple here that are really fun that their counterpart isn't worth very much. Batman Adventures issue number 36. Absolutely love this cover. And you can get this book for under $12 in high grade. But with that DCU Universal logo on the bottom, that right there is an indicator that it was sold in a pack. It was sold at a store, likely at random because it was kind of a grab bag status. You couldn't look inside to see what was inside. And yeah, this one book in high grade goes for $100 strong.
What's the other one? We got Legionnaires number 16. This is the Adams Hughes book.
That's right. And this one is just one that people got to know, but it's a great example about how some of these just randomly are worth more money because they are even lower print. Imagine this. Batman Adventures is a pretty high printed comic book. I mean, it's Batman. Relatively speaking, you know, it is a different line of Batman comics, but it was still heavily printed compared to Legionaries. But this was an Adam Hughes cover, and this goes for $50. Otherwise, found in the dollar bin.
Yeah, so you got to just be checking that barcode. Look for that DCU, and you might find yourself a gem.
That's right. And there are categories for all of these different comic books on Key Collector Comics. So if you want to look at a bunch of them all at once, you can use code TOM101 to unlock a free 1-week subscription. And now we got to go on to what is my favorite type of variant. And
what's that?
Dude, it's the, wait a minute. Dude, what is your shirt? Okay,
Oh,
Comic Fam, you don't know this, but Jem is recording on a separate camera. So I'm looking at him on a webcam and I can't see the bottom of it. Can you kind of stand up a little bit for me so I can see it?
This is my Mark Jeweler shirt.
Dude, that's my Mark Jeweler shirt.
No.
I designed that shirt.
This is the Blue Gem Mint Comic Tom Mark Jeweler's variant shirt.
Dude, that's my shirt. It's the same. I'm just kidding. I'm Comic Fam. We collaborated and made a variant of a shirt that I made. And if you want to support both of our channels, we now have the Mark Jeweler's Gem Mint variant Mark Jeweler shirt.
How dope is that?
I think it's pretty cool. I'll put the link in the description, or you can go to ComicTom101.store. We're splitting the proceeds. You're help supporting both shows. Dude, I thought it was a great idea. I made the design of this shirt, I don't know, a year and a half ago, and we weren't doing a whole lot of collaborating back then, and the gem just looked good, so we rolled with it. But then it hit me when I was at C2E2. I'm like, dude, what if we made that gem blue?
Right.
It lined up. We had to do it.
It works out perfect for both of us.
All right, so why don't we talk about Mark Jeweler variants now?
So Mark Jeweler, and I think that's what the shirt says, right? The original variant. So Mark Jeweler was a jeweler who would put his ads inside comics, but it wouldn't be inside every issue. The issue I always think about the most is the Incredible Hulk 181. The Mark Jeweler variant goes for more than the regular because it just makes it a little bit more scarce. but Mark Jeweler had his insert in a ton of books.
Mark Jewelers sold a lot of different stuff, but primarily their ads consisted of things that were being targeted to males. I mean, there's a lot of guys who were buying comic books, so that worked. And some of these ads were for like high school rings, engagement rings, because they were marketing these towards military personnel, and that's where they sold these ads. And the comics that would largely have the centerfold ad, which is what you're looking for, they're different colors, but you'll know when you find it. The centerfold has a full ad for Mark Jewelers. We'll show pictures of it. And those comics would be sold near or on military bases because they were targeting personnel who were just coming from high school and would be interested in possibly buying a high school ring or a ring for their sweetheart. And you're right, Jem. Not every comic has a Mark Jeweler variant. And what's fascinating about this and a lot of the comics on this list, really all of them, is that that's what makes them unique, is that there's no central list of everything that exists. They're still being found.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. Like, it wasn't in every book, right? So, like, Werewolf by Night 32, some of them have the Mark Jewelers insert, some of them don't. And we don't really know exactly which books have them. It was kind of like it could have skipped a month, but you see them a lot in those Bronze Age books.
That's right. And they definitely add inflation to the comics. But what's fascinating is that this is a recent inflation that's been added. I'm talking within the last 3 years. Now, Mark Jeweler variants have been collected by collectors for a long time, but it wasn't until the last few years that they would add significant value. And it started with the keys. It started with the New Mutants 98s and the Werewolf by Nights, as you described, adding 20, 30, 40% value, when considering the grade of the comic because of an insert. And then that trickle down effect applied to other comic books. And then they come up randomly. We'll see comics that we didn't expect to have a Mark Jeweler variant have it, just like we've seen DCU logo variants pop up. And people go crazy because they don't see them. And then when they come up, oh, now you know they exist. And there's a lot of hungry collectors after them. Now, we can go through a lot of different sales over the last couple of years showing the change in price with Mark Jeweler variants, but I think maybe a more recent example would be better for this.
Yeah, there's actually a book that's shown up on your top 10 list for the last 2 weeks in a row that has now been found to have a Mark Jewelers insert.
That's right. We're talking about Spectacular Spider-Man 176. This is the first appearance of the Corona, the villain in Spectacular Spider-Man. And I think this is a great example to show the power of a variant as it applies to its value, because this is a book that was a dollar bin a month ago. Then that rose to $20, and then that hit highs of $35 to $40. And just in the last couple of days, we see Mark Jeweler variants of this issue hit $50 and rising. So there's that inflation I'm talking about in real time.
Yeah, that's a good example.
Comic fam, I encourage you to become affluent in these variants. Look through them. Go through the categories on Key Collector. Know what to scout for. They go missed on eBay so often. A lot of these don't even have a very high census count for being graded. There's a lot of opportunities in those long boxes and possibly in your own collection.
Yeah, so guys, make sure you get your knowledge up so you can find those things in the wild. The last thing we're going to talk about are viewer comments. We looked at some of our last collaboration videos, and we highlighted some of the most liked or top comments, and we wanted to share them with you guys.
Yeah, man, I was excited. I had so much fun doing vids over on your channel at Gem Collectibles. I've been a follower of your channel since before my YouTube channel existed. So it was cool to be able to engage with other members of a community that I felt part of already. So thank you for having me on. And shout out to Frank Henry, who says, Tom is so animated. That dude can get you to hype over a phone book. I appreciate the comment, Frank. I mean, I'm not trying to get you hyped over nothing, but you know what? Compliment received.
And it's got 42 thumbs up. That's pretty big for a comment.
Yeah, that's a strong comment.
This next one from Matt B's got 53 thumbs up. It says, Gem Mint and Comic Tom together. Is this the greatest crossover in comic book history?
Dude, that was really nice. That's a really nice compliment. Thanks so much, Matt B. Appreciate that. Ooh, let's chat about, because we made a video about variants, did we not? Yeah. We got to read that. This is from...
You know what's funny about that? That video was controversial, but I got the idea for that video from what my LCS owner told me. He was like, man, these help me out. And it was funny because when we shared that, there was a lot of mixed reaction to it.
Absolutely. Unruly Simeon says variants aren't killing the industry, but the amount of them, particularly on books that do not deserve nor need one, sure aren't helping. No book needs more than 3 variants tops. Full stop. Love both y'all. That's an interesting take on it. And I think that's actually most people's opinions is that they don't want to see, them just come off the board and not do any altogether. They just want to see less of them.
Yeah, Unruly Simeon's my guy. 40 people agreed with him, and I think you're right. I think a new number one, I think maybe an event, maybe the main story of the event should have variants, but random issues, yeah, I can see what you mean about not every book needing one.
But there's actually not that many, right? I mean, like, I'm trying to think right now. Like, there's a lot of variants that come out for number one. Of course, I'll give you that.
Right.
But think of like some of the more recent Batman issues, or even like, the more sequential, like 2, 3, 4, 5 of whatever book that comes out. There aren't that many variants, are they not?
Yeah, I think it's got to dwindle down the more the run goes on. I mean, James Tynion's run on Batman, are there any variants on those issues? Even the Punchline stuff, because that hasn't come out yet. They have that Archer variant coming out, but I don't think that there are any. I might be wrong, but at least there's not an overabundance of them. And that's just one example.
Yeah, like people aren't like complaining about those in particular. I think it's more of just the issue number one. And if there was only 3, that would be kind of tough, because I'm a fan of the work the artists get. I like seeing artists have opportunity to really compete with one another for our attention, the communities, because that's how you get the best work. And then all of a sudden you have you have a lot of different covers, but you have artists that are kind of rising to the top, becoming more competitive, and then pushing that marker of success.
Definitely a good showcase for new artists. And I like how Unruly and this next comment by D Tech, they enjoy our content and they disagreed, and that's fine. D Tech had 38 thumbs up on this one, and he said, "You said it's not for the money. Every reason was literally about getting you to buy comics. Literally money. I'm being technical, but I'm addicted to your content." And I think, maybe we didn't word it right. I think what we meant is like people buying comics is good for the comic book industry, not necessarily that Tom wants to make money off his exclusive or that comic book store owners want to make money by uppricing their variant. We're just saying the more you're bringing people into the hobby and people are spending money on comic books, it's better and it help continue the hobby to live on.
Keep the industry going. My perspective is the more comics that are sold, the more comics get made. And I like seeing more comics get made. That means there's more opportunity for comic books to come out with a bang, for more Immortal Hulks to happen, and for more risks to happen. And I like seeing the work. I mean, there's a lot of hungry artists and writers itching to be the next Donny Cates. I'll remind everybody that Donny Cates was he described himself to me as like a failed comic book store employee for a long time until he was given the opportunity to try out. So, more comics, the better in my book.
Couldn't agree more.
Dude, I really appreciate you being here, man. Comic Fam, you got to go follow Jen Mint over on his YouTube channel. You got anything fun going on over there right now?
Yeah, man, we still doing daily content, a lot of statue unboxing and reviews. We're doing a lot of recent reads on like omnibus or collected editions. We usually do new comic book day reviews, but obviously that's going to be on hold until they start printing and distributing those again. But still daily content, a lot of collaborations, having a good time.
All right. Well, I'm going to be following you in Comic Fam. I hope you're following our channel as well. Make sure to comment. Let us know what you think about this podcast. What do you think about this video? What are you hunting for on eBay from home, right? You're in isolation, I hope. And, what are you doing to keep occupied? I can use some reading material if you guys have any advice, any suggestions. And if you do those things, commenting and all that, it'll enter you to win we're doing 2 giveaways today. We have this Marvel Comics 1001 1 in 100 variant, as well as my Immortal Hulk volume number 1 from the PC that we're going to be sending out next week. Comic Fam, I love you. We're going to continue this conversation. I'm actually going to continue it. Comic Tom's going solo on the bonus show. Go join me on SoundCloud, Spotify, Stitcher, and iTunes. The camera's shutting off, but I'm going to keep it going on the mic. I'm here. I want to chat comics with you. And as always,
Geek responsibly.
Enough said.